All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, as we've said all day, it's Veterans Day today, and we are so privileged to introduce the following people in studio with us. We have retired Chief Warrant Officer in the U.S. Army Special Forces and Ranger Hall of Fame member, Gary O'Neill, who has written a great new book, American Warrior, the true story of a legendary Ranger. And Gary, you're here with other people, and I do want to acknowledge them in a second, but I want to talk to you. I mean, you started serving this country at the age of 17 in Vietnam, and you fought also all the way through in both Gulf Wars. God bless you. Thank you for your service. And the book is out in paperback, I should mention. It was out in hardcover. There it is on the screen. You have been called one of the, if not the greatest, one of the greatest warriors this nation's ever known. Got to feel pretty good, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of humble about it. I just did my job. It was a great pleasure. I had some of the best instructors and mentors and heroes that this country's ever produced, and I just took it a couple steps further.
But we talk about what the specialness, if you will, of those who especially enlist and volunteer to put themselves in harm's way. Talk about your own uniqueness and your longevity and you know, staying in for so long and fighting so many battles. What motivated you?
Well, basically it's broke down to my my family heritage on my dad's side. My fifth great grandfather was in the Frontier Rangers and fought in the Revolutionary War along with his two sons, and they signed the oath of allegiance to America, and it's brought back all my family's fought in pretty much every war down to me, and I didn't have a choice but to carry on the O'Neill tradition.
And you did it so proudly and so well. And the book American Warrior has your entire amazing story, and I highly recommend it. And sitting to your right is Micheline Bigman, founder and president of Native American Women Warriors Organization. Behind the two of you are two Native Americans, obviously. The one behind Gary is a veteran, and the one behind Micheline is, sorry, I don't have the names, is on active duty. Micheline, welcome, and talk a little bit about your military background and the Native American Women Warriors Organization.
I raised my right hand in 1987, April of 1987, and then I served until April of 2009. I am also a descendant of, and I used to tell a lot of people we're descendants of chiefs, warriors, and even my uncles and my family members, even my grandmother was in World War II, so I kind of like, just like Gary, was to kind of carry on the tradition, and not only that, the inspiring of fighting for a country that we still believe is in our hearts is ours. As far as Native American Women Warriors, Native American Women Warriors in 2010 was recognized as the first all-female Native American color guard. And my ambition was to surface the recognition of not only the women veterans, but the Native American women veterans, because for some reason, since we aren't a mainstream America, we have a tendency to be forgotten. So that's something that was placed on my heart, and something that really pushed forward. And we're also embarking on a 501c3 nonprofit to help our Native American women veterans, because from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, there's so many of them that just need some assistance in that transitioning, that are still trying to transition into today's society.
And Gary, that's something we should also talk about, especially with all the returning veterans coming home now, wounded. Medical care is better than ever, but treatment here isn't necessarily what it should be, is it?
No, it's not. It's hard to understand when it comes to battle. It's all up to their upbringing. It's all about their self-discipline and how much discipline and self-discipline the individual has. And everybody is different. So you've got to be able to understand the person himself, and it takes the person to the warrior himself to help himself. And our doctors and our counselors and everything, is their responsibility is
Right.
to bring the natural ability out of them and then let them heal themselves.
And Gary, thank you so much. That's a very important point. Thank you. Gary O'Neill, again, the book American Warrior. I want to thank Micheline, Big Man, and we'll be back,
you.
folks, with much more of the Steve Malzberg Show. But first, when the USS Missouri was struck by a kamikaze plane in '45, it effectively ended World War II. Let's take a look back with this American moment.
Christened on January 29, 1944, by the daughter of future President Harry S. Truman, the USS Missouri was our country's last great battleship and rapidly became the pride of the American Navy. On the 11th of April, 1945, she was attacked by a kamikaze pilot who crashed his aircraft into her starboard side, causing minor damage, which can still be seen to this day. The Missouri's commander, Captain William N. Callahan, ordered the pilot's body to be recovered so he could be buried at sea with full military honors. Serving with distinction throughout the Great War and beyond, it seemed only fitting when General of the Army Douglas MacArthur chose her as the site of the Empire of Japan's unconditional surrender. On the day of the signing, September 2nd, 1945, General MacArthur put little trust in his former adversary, so as a precaution, he ordered over 1,000 Allied combat aircraft to fill the skies over Tokyo Bay as a warning to the Japanese. Should they be planning anything but complete and unconditional surrender, retribution would be swift and complete. With her decks filled with sailors and soldiers alike, Supreme Allied Commander Douglas MacArthur began the ceremonies. He took his pen and handed it to General Jonathan Wainwright. Wainwright was touched. He had stayed on in the Philippines during the 1941 Japanese invasion, survived the Bataan Death March, and spent 4 years in a Japanese POW camp. A new long peace between Japan and America had begun. Big Mo, as she was affectionately known, permanently dropped anchor in Pearl Harbor on January 29, 1999, and opened as a museum, forever commemorating the site where America's involvement in World War II began and where it ended. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American